drop it. So, okay. So this is Valentina, take 1. Wait, I got to do that again because I got to do action, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay, Valentina, take 1 and action.
Hey, yay, we're here.
Okay, so this is my dearest friend. This is Valentina Ferguson, and she is here with me at my home. She came to visit and here with her husband, John, and I am so honored to have you here in my house. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get emotional.
Don't
so,
do it. You're going to run your mascara. Don't do it.
So my dear friend Valentina is here, and she is an EMS, and she has said yes to being interviewed. So she's my very first interview, and I'm doing this for the students. You guys need advice, you need help, you get sick of listening to me. I'm trying to find other very interesting, fun, exciting, knowledgeable people to share their wealth of knowledge with you. So welcome, Valentina.
Well, thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Okay, so tell us, Valentina, tell us just a little bit about yourself before I get into some questions for you.
Well, you've said most of it. My name's Valentina, and I got into EMS in 2000, so I've been doing this for a while. I'm actually not running right now. I'm certified, but I've decided that sleep feels really good as I'm getting older. And
right?
Yeah. Sleep is a good thing. Get your sleep.
Sleep is your best friend.
Yeah.
Especially after running ambulance for years and years.
Well, running nights. And Rachel, she talks about you all the time. I want you to know she just loves you students, and she's thinking about you all the time, and she'll call me and ask me, what should I do, or how should I do this? And she's just way excited about you, and she loves every one of you. And so she asked me if I would do this. This is kind of Lucy and Ethel going on right now, because she gets these wild ideas, and I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Kind of true. Kind of true. Okay, so Valentina, tell us where you live.
I live in Beaver, and that's where I got my license, and I ran with Beaver Ambulance, so that was good. And then I also worked at a power plant during construction. That was really cool. I started at the ground level, and I was their EMT on site there. And during the construction of the power plant that my husband's working at now, he runs it. So, and I worked for the builder, and that was really, really interesting to watch, and be part of the team from ground up. That was really cool.
Very cool.
So your EMS education can be put into many, many different fields, which, you don't just have to run ambulance. There's a lot of other avenues, which I think is really cool. You can branch off into a whole bunch of stuff. It's really
neat. Not just the ER. There's so many options for people. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. All right. So Valentina, tell us what level you are certified at.
I went basic and just decided that was good enough, because I felt like I wanted to be absolutely competent in every part of that, and I never did go further, and that was fine, because I was just really good at being basic.
Well, you got to know the basics before you can go any further, right?
And there's been times when I've been on call, and you've got the advanced, for instance, one time we went on a call, and we showed up, and that was a crazy call. I'll tell them that later. But the advanced, they started CPR on the bed to start doing compressions on the bed, and I was like, wait a minute, we get her on the floor, and I'm just the basic, but I got the basic stuff. They were all wanting to push meds and stuff, and you have to do the basics first.
That's right. Yeah, you can't do good CPR on the bed. It's not going to do anything.
No. Well, make you look like a fool, but
yeah. So you stopped them from doing that.
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did. Which is a really good thing that you do often. You help everybody stay on track. Valentina, what do you think your specialty is in EMS? If you could pick an area or something that you feel like is your strongest point, what would you say that is?
The most important thing for me, what I do, what I'm good at, is I can meet someone and within 5 seconds be in their personal space, and they feel comfortable with me. I'm the mama of the crew, and I can walk into a situation and love that person like instantly. And it's like they're my long lost child, and I just go in, and I'm there to do a job, and they're precious to me, and I don't care, what the situation is, whether it's, there's no judgment. Sometimes you go on a call and people oh, well, they've been drinking, so we don't want to deal with this one, or they've had domestic abuse. We don't want to, and I don't, that all goes away. I'm there to just serve them.
Yeah.
And I just love them. I love my patients.
So you're very good at connecting with people instantaneously, and you have a lot of compassion for people.
Yeah, and I think, you're going to find that you're in situations where you never thought you would be. We had a little guy, he was 3 years old. He had to have stitches and he was freaking out. And so I sat cross-legged on the ER floor and sang Mary Poppins and all different kinds of songs, and we got those stitches in, and he was happy. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to adjust, and you have to know how to connect to your patient.
Yeah, you do. It's true. I remember the first time that we ever went on a call together. Do you remember our first call together?
Remind me. I'm trying to think. I don't. We did a few.
Yeah, the very first time we ever went on a call together, because Valentina used to tell me all the time this kind of stuff, like, this is what's important. Before we ever ran together, you've got to have compassion for the people. You need to make a connection. They are the reason that you're there. This is the most important thing. And the first call we ever went on was a transport, and it was for a long distance transport. Everywhere from Beaver is long distance. Okay. So,
we're going anywhere big. Yeah.
It's true. So we drove this little old man up to, I can't remember if it was Provo or Salt Lake, but he was about 80 years old, and he was from Idaho, and he knew my grandfather from Idaho. I don't know if you remember. This is a long time ago. This is 15 years ago. So anyway, we transported him, and there was you and myself, and I was a student. So there was another female in the back, and we had this man laughing and giggling, and you and I were you were like, hey, this is my patient, move over.
Yeah.
And we're kind of fighting for attention from him, and he just thought that was so much fun. And we kept that man entertained, and he felt happy, and we were happy, and we were having a great time together. And that was our first call together. But we both loved the patient, and that was something that just impressed me about you more than most people. Like, you're very good at that.
I think what you need to understand, I think if I was going to give any piece of advice, would be that you have been selected specifically for that call. When that pager goes off, if you're on the pager, it's like the Lord himself is saying, okay, I need you to go. And there's no one else who can be you. And I remember I love the transports. That's always been my favorite because I got to connect with the patients. And there was this man, and he was really sick, and we transported him up north. And he had a lot of regrets in his life. He was very sad. He felt like he'd gotten divorced, and he didn't want to be divorced. And his children, he was kind of estranged from his kids. And I got to talk to him the whole way there. And I just said, like, you have breath in your body. There's hope for you. Make the phone call, get in touch with the people that you care about, and connect with them, reconnect with them. If that's important to you, then you need to do that. And I encouraged him, and we talked and had a good time. And we got up to the hospital in Salt Lake. I can't remember which one we dropped him off at, but they took him in, and they basically, we left him in the ER and transferred him to the doctors, and they kept him for a day or so, and they just said, we're sorry, there's nothing we can do. But in that time, he had contacted his family, his wife, his children. They all came and saw him at the hospital. And so they said, we're going to transport you back home because, there's nothing more we can do for you. And they put him in the back of the ambulance, and they shut the doors. And as they rolled away, he passed away. But we had that moment, and he got to reconnect with his family. And I feel like, had we not been together in that moment, had I not encouraged him and just said, it's okay, it doesn't matter, the past is the past, and you've got this moment, make it count. Had we not had that time together, he might not have made the call. And I feel like, to me, that's one of the greatest parts of EMS. Yes, you do your skills. You need to know your skills, and you need to be proficient. You need to be absolutely sure of what you're doing when you take that call. But it's not just a physical job. You are a light to those people. You are in their darkest moment a lot of times in their life. And another thing that I love about EMS is that you're not just dealing with the patients. Those family members are patients too. I went on a call one time. We had a code blue, and there was like 6 people in a bathroom trying to revive a 98-year-old woman. And they were all in there trying to work her in the bathroom by the tub in front of the toilet. And they all walked past her daughter-in-law. her daughter-in-law was the one that made the call, and she was a wreck. She was falling apart, and that was my patient, because you have to open your eyes and you have to see the whole scene. You don't just go for the, gusto. Oh, I got the, code blue, or oh, I got to bag someone. There's patients all around you, because when you go into someone's home, there's several people who are hurting, not just the one.
Yeah. And you're the one that taught that to me at the very beginning of my start in EMS. So thank you for that. Yeah, it's true. I think it's the most important lesson. Okay. So before I go any further, I have to say that Valentina decided to take a little break from EMS for a short time, and then she decided, you know what, I miss it. I want back in. I'm going to do this again. This is a lesson for people to learn. If you let yourself lapse for too long, you got to take the class over again.
Okay. So here's the thing. We adopted some little girls, and they had come from a lot of trauma, and so they couldn't handle mom getting up in the middle of the night and running out for the pager. That was very frightening for them. They were afraid I wasn't going to come back, and so I stepped down because I wanted to have a safe environment for them. That's how that happened.
Yeah.
And that was a really hard decision.
Yeah, I remember.
That was a really hard decision, but it was something that just needed to happen at that time. But what's really cool about EMS is it's never too late. If you decide to re-up like I did, and Rachel, you taught the class, that was amazing. I got to be your first student.
It was my very first class that I ever taught as the course coordinator.
Yeah.
And you were the top, you set the bar.
Absolutely.
You were the absolute top student.
Yeah.
And the bar wasn't right here. It was like clear up off camera.
Yeah.
It was in the sky.
Yeah.
You did amazing.
Yeah, and I had nemesis in that class, and every time we'd have a test, and like I would freak out if I missed. Yes, Curtis. Yeah. If I missed one question, I'd be like, "No, I hope he didn't get it." So yeah, that was good.
That was fun. That was a really fun class. It's so true.
Yeah, if you're gonna do it, you have to bring your A game. You can't mess around. This is not just for fun and games. This is people's lives. You have to know what you're doing, but you can make it fun by torturing everyone and being better than them.
Yeah, and make it nice for your teacher and do a fantastic job.
Make her look
Valentina.
good.
Yeah, totally. Make me look good. I need a job, right? So make me look really good. Okay, so Valentina, why did you originally, when you first got into EMS, why did you choose EMS?
Okay, so to be totally honest, oh my gosh. Okay, kids, this is the real life. So I was married, and my husband decided to have a stupid attack, and he had a little mini affair, and marriage to me was really important, and he apologized and wanted to get back together, and I thought, I was concerned that I was going to look weak and stupid to myself, and so I wanted to prove to myself that I was smart and strong, and so I took the EMS course and aced that course, and I am woman, hear me roar, here I am.
You are smart, and you are strong, and you're an amazing, fantastic caregiver.
But yeah, that was a rough time. But EMS is, it's not just for your patients. It gives you amazing life skills, and it brings the best of you out. When you give to other people and you serve other people, you really truly are blessing yourself more than you bless anyone else. And it's not for the money. The money when I was first running, we didn't get paid. It was a volunteer service. And we did it because we wanted to serve our community and just be there for people in need. And I've been paid as an EMT, and the money's fine and everything. I think that's great. But if you're doing it for the money, you're in the wrong profession, because EMS is so much more than a paycheck. It is life altering for your patients. I still have patients. I have a woman. Okay, we were taking her to Salt Lake again. She was pregnant and she was having premature labor. And we had a nurse with us, and they over-medicated her. They were trying to stop the contractions, and they over-medicated her. We were losing her and the baby. So we had two patients. And there really wasn't anything we could do we gave her oxygen, and we did, we monitored in case we needed to do compressions, because she went unconscious. It was really hairy back there. And I was praying in the back of the ambulance like a crazy woman, and calling down angels and asking the Lord to help us, because that's why I do. I never had the adrenaline rush. When the pager went off, it wasn't like, yes, I get to go, I'm going to, the adrenaline people talk about. I never had that. It was always, to me, it was a humbling thing, because the Lord needed me. And it was like, okay, equip me, teach me, show me what I need to do, help me remember everything. Anyway, we worked her, and we got her she came back around and we got her going, and we got to the hospital, and she had we stopped the contractions, and about 3 weeks later she had the baby. But the neatest thing is when she saw me again, she held that baby up, and I was like, oh, he's so perfect and everything. And she said, this is your baby. This is your baby. And because she didn't speak, she spoke Spanish. I didn't speak Spanish. She didn't speak English. I was like, oh my gosh. And we communicated just fine. Her and her husband were in the back. And every time I see them still, they'll say, this is your son. This is your son. Mm-hmm. So you touch people's lives for the rest, and you don't even know sometimes how important that moment is for them. It's the worst day of their life. And if you do your job, they'll remember you and your kindness and all that you give them. And so to me, that's the most important part of the job. Know your skills, know what you have to do and how to do it, and be proficient, but you need to love those people.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's like my biggest. And I'm gonna tell you another pet peeve I have. This is my soapbox. I cannot stand when new EMTs, they get all excited. Oh, that was a good call. We got to bag that guy, or oh, we got to do CPR, and that's great that you get to use your skills. I mean, those are important. But a good call is when you get called and you get halfway there and they say, you know what, everybody's okay, on a rollover. That's a good call because no one's hurt, no one's suffered. The good calls are when there's a positive outcome. If you have to bag someone and you get them, breathing again, or you have to do CPR and their heart starts beating, those are the good calls. It's not the adrenaline junkie. That's not the good call. Because when there's death, dying, and mayhem, someone's losing a mom, someone's losing a sister, someone's losing a wife or a husband. And I've been on those calls, and those are rough calls, We're there to be a light. We're there to help in any way we can, but we got to remember that this is the most important people of someone's life. And even if on the outside, people don't value them. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. So we went on a call, and it's the one on the bed where they started doing CPR on the bed. She was gone. She was, and they were in a real bad situation. We got to the house and we asked them to turn on outside lights. They turned on the outside lights and it tripped the circuit breaker, and they didn't have lights in the house.
Right.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. It was crazy. And then they couldn't get the lights anywhere on. And so we were like trying to go through our bag and get airways, and
you can't see anything.
we were using flash, the headlamps and flashlights in this little crowded house. They were, getting her on the gurney and getting her out and everything. And we worked her, we did CPR, we did everything we needed to do in the back of the ambulance. We got her to the hospital, and we worked her, and she didn't make it. She was gone before we even got there. And I kept thinking, what am I doing here? Because I wasn't of any good. I wasn't any help. Wasn't service to anybody. And about 10 minutes later, after, everything we'd done and the doctor called it, the family came in. Okay. And they were completely drunk. She was a chronic alcoholic. That's what she died from. And it was really a bad scene. And her husband came in, and these people were filthy and they were stinky. And the son was swearing like a drill sergeant at the top of his voice. And my other crew members were like, okay, we're done here. Our patient's gone. And I'm like, no, this is why I'm on this call. I'm here for this. And so I walked over to him, and he's like, we effing called. We did everything. I said, you did a good job. And he's holding on to me, and he's crying on my shoulder, and I'm holding him and loving him like if he was my son. And his wife's crying on my shoulder, and her husband. And I couldn't leave that scene until we got that taken care of, because they were patients too. They had just lost their mom. And even though to everyone else they looked like filthy, scroungy bums, they were patients, and they needed to be supported, and they needed to be encouraged, because they had just lost their mom, their wife, their mother-in-law, and it was traumatic for them. And so you have to open your scope. You can't just think in the box of like the person that we're taking care of is our patient. You have patients all around you, and you have to be aware that each patient they're in shock. They're in trauma. They're suffering, and they need support. And that's one of the most important jobs, because a lot of times when you lose a patient, when someone's, especially on a rollover or something, you get to the scene, you have an echo, they're gone. There's nothing that you can do for them, but you have patients all around you. That's like my biggest thing. I'm
It's
like
true.
such a soapbox on that. Sorry.
My big soapbox is, because I agree with what you said. And my big thing is when you take care of a patient and it's their very worst day and you show up and you are their EMT or their advanced EMT or their paramedic or even a bystander sometimes, but you show up on the scene to take care of someone, they will never forget the way that you look at them,
Yep.
the way that you touch them, the way you talk to them, the way you treat them, the way that you treat their family members, the way that you behave and the way that you care for someone matters, and it stays with them for the rest of their lives. For us, it's just another day. For a lot of people, they look at it that way, as if it's just another day at work. It's just another call. Good, I'm done. Let's clean out and let's just get ready for the next one. Let's go. Which is great. Sometimes you got to get in the zone and be ready to go when you have call after call after call. But you have to remember that those individuals that we are working for, it actually matters to them and they'll never forget it.
Right.
And the people around you and around that patient, especially if it's a loved one for them, they will remember the way you looked at them and the way that you touched them. And even if the patient themselves is not aware, other people are aware of that, and they will remember. They will either have a good impression and some comfort from that, or they'll have negative memories of that. And so it's really important.
Yes, and unfortunately, those negative memories are so powerful for them. They stay with them trauma forever. It's like imprinted in their brain, and they will never let go of it. And they will call, and we've had EMTs that got in trouble. They got called to the bar, and they were judgmental. And people do what they do, and it's not our place to decide if that's okay or not okay. We are there to care for them. And we went into the bar, which I never thought I'd go, to the bar because that's not my thing. But and they were just like, oh, this, he's just drunk, whatever. He's an old, wino, whatever. And actually, the man was a diabetic. And when we got him in the back of the ambulance and we looked at his feet, he was close to diabetic coma. And we did the glucose test on him, and he was really low. But they just wrote him off as a drunk, but he wasn't. He could have died. I mean, he was drinking, I'm sure, in the bar, but that's not our place to judge him. He was in trouble. He was having, low glucose, and he was in a serious situation. And we just do what we need to do, and don't get a tunnel vision of like, oh, well, it's just this because we're in the bar. You have to step back and work your patient, and use your skills and do what you need to do to find out really what's going on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Agreed. I couldn't agree more with what you just said. Okay, so we've already had some story time. But we are going to have a little bit of story time with Valentina. She has an awesome story that I think is one of the all-time best. It's one of my favorite stories. No. One of my favorite stories ever. And so Valentina herself is here in person, or for you virtually, but she's here in person with me, and she has agreed to tell the sheep story. Oh my gosh. And so yes, we have a little pretend fireplace in front of us. So story time with Valentina around the fire. Go for it. So it was probably about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and we get a call. So, we jump in and go. And I was the only female on the crew, and we had 2 other EMTs. And we head out, we get a call to go out on the highway, that there's someone sick and they're pulled on the side of the road and they need help. So we go out there, and it was a woman, and her daughter was about 13, 14 years old. And she'd been like, this is really traumatic for me to even remember. Yes. So I'm all, I'm in my, I'm all, good. I've got my uniform on and my little badge, and I'm looking great, and my boots and everything. And we get to the scene, and she has been throwing up and having diarrhea for about the last 50 miles. And so, we're gloved up and everything and suited up, and we get her on the gurney and get her, Wait, can I interrupt you? I'm so sorry. I don't want to interrupt you, but how much BSI did you have on? What did you have? Do you remember? I had my gown, and I had my gloves. Okay. I didn't do the face shield or anything, because at that point she was talking to us, and so we were good. But, okay. Right. So gown and gloves. Okay. Yeah. Okay, but just to let you know, sometimes that's not quite enough. So she the car was drivable. There was no accident or anything. It was perfectly fine. It was just that she was completely sick and couldn't drive, and her daughter was too young. She didn't have a license. So they decided, we put her on the gurney. They started to give her IV because she was like really weak, and they were doing, and they said, Valentina, you're the only female on the crew, and we don't want to leave her daughter on the side of the road and late at night or have the wrecker guys come out, and they're usually men. So we need you to drive the car in. And I was, oh, okay, yay.
There's Sandy Fire right now.
Yeah, they're coming to rescue me from this. So I don't have to tell you. So I was just like, you got to be kidding me. And the guys, of course, now you have to understand, your crew members are going to laugh and enjoy it way too much when you have a call. Like, I always had the poopers and the pukers. That was my call. And they were always the ones that were just like sick and, like miserable. And they'd be like, Valentina, that's your patient. So I remember I opened the door and I stuck my foot in to get in the car. And then when I sat down, it was like, and I'm just like, oh, dear God. It was so bad. Like, it was like liquid seat. It was the worst. And, and the poor daughter, the daughter was humiliated and she was horrified. I mean, think about if it was your mom or dad, and she was embarrassed. I'm like, no, we're fine. It's good. We're fine. And it was about 20 degrees out, and I had to put the window down because of the smell. It was bad. And so I'm driving, and I'm like leaning out the window. No, we're good. It's absolutely, you're fine. Things like this happen, and it's a normal experience, and don't you worry about it. Your mom will be just fine. They're taking care of her. And breathing out the window. And so we got her to the hospital and, did everything we needed to do. And then I got to the med shed, and there was no way I was going to get in my car. I had just gotten a car. I had a car for 2 weeks, my brand new car. And so I came home in a sheet that night, and it had soaked through everything I owned. And the only thing I had on when I was done was my purple bra and a sheet. And that's how I got home that night. And that was quite a call.
And I remember.
Oh. Yeah, and for months, the guys gave me a hard time. They talked to, I don't know what was more interesting, that I had a purple bra on or that I wore a sheet. And they gave me crap for, they gave me a hard time for a long time. So I'm famous for the sheet story.
Yes, you are.
Yes, I am.
Yes, you are.
And I lived through it. I'm okay. And you're going to have days like that too, and it's okay.
It will be okay.
Your body,
eventually.
You wash your clothes and you wash your body, and you just keep going.
And you move on, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for telling that story. I know that was traumatic for you to relive, but I appreciate it, and the students will appreciate it. And now you know how important BSI is and how crazy some of the
you know what, even with the BSI, it literally soaked through everything. Yeah. Sometimes you just you take one for the team and you pray a lot that you're okay, because that could have been really bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But God was good to me because I was being kind.
Okay, so the last part that I want to go over with you, or that I would like to ask you, for the students and for any EMS personnel, any person that's decided to get into EMS and fire, into this public safety family, what kind of advice would you like to give and would you like to leave for new people considering this, people that are in their first class, people that have just finished, they've just certified, they're just now starting out? You've been around for a long time. You've been doing this for a long time. You have a lot of experience. What would you like to tell new people?
The most important thing to me is patient care. No matter what that looks like, you need to take care of your patient and do 110%. I'm going to give an example. I worked at the hospital for a while as well, during the night, and there was new CNA girls, and they were supposed to be washing the patients. Mm-hmm. And you're going to deal with things as an EMT. You're going to see body parts. You're going to see intimate parts of people, and you have to just look at it like if you were looking at their arm. There's no, just be bold and take care of the situation. And anyway, they weren't washing the man, and his skin was peeling off of him and his genitals because they didn't wash him. And when you're in bed rest, you have to take care. You're going to deal with things that you never thought you'd ever deal with. And you have to be mature enough to step up to the plate and do the job. And remember that these are people who have feelings, and they're embarrassed, and they're humble because they're in a bad situation. And a lot of times, unfortunately, they got themselves in that situation in some life choices. People make some bad choices and they wind up in trouble. But that's not our job to decide if that was, like, we don't pass judgment. We're not the judge and jury. We're there to serve. And if you're not in it to take care of people and to love on people and to care for them and just put all biases aside and just whatever you're walking into, then you really shouldn't do it. It's not something that you do for a paycheck. If you're doing a good job, it's not about the money. It's not about the glory and getting the badges of all the people that you got to bag. It's really about taking each individual person and making them the most important person in the world and giving them the very best care that you can, and letting them know that they are seen, that they are cared about, and that it's okay. They're going to, we're going to help you. We're going to do whatever we can to get you through this, to get you back on your feet, whatever it takes. And just let them know that they're loved. Because a lot of people, they don't have that. They don't have that feeling of, I've been on some calls, and I usually get the ones that are pretty rough. I didn't tell you this one. We went to a house, and the family, they were hoarders, and the house was really, really bad. And it was really bad. And she was extremely obese. She was over 600 pounds. And so we had to use the large mat with the handles. I don't know if they've got
a mega mover.
Mega mover. Mm-hmm. I called it, whatever. But and we had a mover, and it was really hard, and the guys were struggling, and it was just hard to get her out of the house. And when we got her to the hospital, she had gone to the hospital, and they're like, no, you're fine, you're fine. Well, she was septic, and they didn't know. We had to get a Foley in. Do they know Foleys yet?
No.
Okay, that's a new one.
A urinary catheter.
Yes. Yeah. So we had to get a Foley in, and she was so big that it took 5 of us to help get the Foley in, because we had to hold her skin back, and she had gangrene in her rolls, and she was really, really sick. It was horrible. I felt so bad for her, and she was really sick. And then we transported her, and she was so septic that we started to lose her on the way. And was so sad. Yeah. But what I'm bringing up, though, is there were people who were mocking and being ugly about, the house was disgusting, and the thing is in that moment, nothing matters. It doesn't matter what your house looks like. It doesn't matter, how big you are, or how, that was a rough call. That was a rough procedure. Nobody likes that kind of stuff. But at that moment, we just cared about her, and we saved her. We got her. That's awesome. We took care of her. We did a good job. We got her transported, and she lived, which was a miracle, because we were losing her. She got combative. She was disoriented, and she was septic, so she was crashing bad. But we got her there, and the thing is that is a human being. That's, a spiritual being living like that. And that, to me, is really sad that someone let themselves go that bad. And I'm glad that I was there, because I could love her and just encourage her and tell her, you know what, we're going to get through this, and we're going to make it. And those are the kind of things. And really, you're going to find out what you're made out of. You're going to find out what you are made out of, because you're going to be pushed further and driven harder than you think you can do. And you'll do it. You raise up to it, and you do it, and you do a good job. And then you can feel proud about it when you're done. You walk a little taller, because you know that you did your very best. That's why it's important to know your skills. That's why it's important to be proficient, because you don't want to come home from a call and be like, oh man, I should have done this, or maybe if I would have known how to do that better. Don't ever do that to yourself. That's a horrible place to be. You want to know that you gave it your all, 110, you did your best job, and then you leave it there.
I love that advice. I think that's the very best. Very best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I don't know that you could give better advice than that. I think that's some of the most important words that students will ever hear.
Well, I think it would have been better if you were using the mic.
Oh, you mean this one right
Yeah.
here? Hey, Tina.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy this process?
It was fabulous. I just want you to know I was really excited to be here for your students. And I was so excited to be the first because I am number one.
I'm excited too. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, don't hug the mic because I want to. Thanks.